Hello, everyone. I am Yasmin West on behalf of Radio Bob. I am here with another wonderful interview for you to share. Um, Roxy Rocker. I met her quite some time ago, and we've been kind of playing phone tag and trying to get a hold of each other, but we're finally here now making this interview happen. So, welcome, Roxy. We're happy to have you here.
It's so nice to be here. And I think we've played phone tags, but I think we've known each other for a little over a year and a half now. And we get a hold of each other. It's just timing doesn't always work.
Right.
You're in the Pacific and I'm in East, so East Coast time. So I think that sometimes has part of the playing field.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we're here.
Yeah. And you are a very busy lady, and you are a shining star because you
Mm.
do have a disability yourself.
Multiple.
Yeah. And that is an inspiration to anybody else out there with a disability that thinks they can't do something. Roxy is out there in the world doing all sorts of things,
Mhm.
and we're going to share some of that. But
Mm.
first, I'd like to start with a story that I wanted to share with you. I grew up, my uncle,
Mm.
he was brain damaged at birth. And so he couldn't speak. He could make sounds from his,
Mhm.
and he would like grunt and make, sing and kind of, but he couldn't sound out words. But it was, and so it was a brain disability, but it didn't affect his ability to do things. He was very physical, very strong.
Mm.
He could learn, he could understand what you were saying.
Mhm.
So very intelligent, and I think it was frustrating for him that he couldn't talk and communicate. And so I grew up with that my entire life. And, when my grandmother passed away, my mom and I, we couldn't handle him because he would get violent sometimes. And
Mm.
so we put him in a home after my grandmother passed away. But I grew up most of my life with him in the household. He was part of
Mm.
the family and just someone who was a little different. And my friends would come over and they're like, "What's wrong with him?" I'm like, "There's nothing wrong with him. He was born with a disability." So I'd like you to kind of chime in on that,
Mhm.
and maybe people out there that don't understand what it's like,
Mhm.
and the
Mhm.
judgments and the assumptions that
Mhm.
they think people can't do for themselves if they have a disability.
So backwards in times when I was born, the laws were all being passed around some rights around education, around schooling. So there was a lot of people that would have been known as mentally retarded, which we can't really say that word anymore. And there was a lot of people who were very disabled, and people didn't know how to handle that, right?
Right.
I even just learned that, like, in the 50s through like 1979, there were these ugly laws that people with disabilities weren't even allowed to go outside. And a lot of times, people like your uncle would have been institutionalized. So a lot of things were happening in the 70s and the 80s, and it was very misunderstood, very misunderstood. And so I had a leg discrepancy and learning disabilities when I was a child, but it was extremely misunderstood. It was like, I kind of recognized when I was little that there were people like that made noises and were very very different and very very different from me because I was verbal. um and I think that there's so many misunderstandings, and I almost feel like even utilizing the word in my business name becomes uncomfortable and scary for people, right? So
Right.
like, if you hear the word disability, oh, I'm not sure if I really want to talk about that. I don't really know how comfortable I am about that. And do we know why people are uncomfortable or nervous or confused? Because there's an unknown. And inside that unknown, where are you going to get information? And how do you understand that? And then I don't know what year that was, but between the 70s and those 90s, before all the laws started getting passed,
That's
there
when it was. Yeah.
right? It was
Yeah.
during that time frame where we didn't talk about these things. There weren't laws, there weren't resources. They were known as the R word, and they were either going to be institutionalized or in a what they called a self-contained classroom. Or if they were an adult, right? They're probably in a home where somebody is taking care of them, or they're going to an institution or a group home. The group homes were probably starting to open in late 80s, 90s. The group homes weren't even probably around. They were more popular in 90s and 2000s
Right.
because the laws were getting passed and things were changing and the disability rights groups were speaking up more because now we had these actual documentation and definitions of disability. Because in the 70s and 90s, it was just, well, they're different. Yeah, they're a little, they're another kind of person. And so nobody really knew how to identify it, right?
Right.
Wasn't identifiable because first of all, there was no laws to protect anybody.
Mhm.
And secondly, nobody really knew what to do, you know? And if they were in like some kind of program, you might have had somebody like the people that took care of Helen Keller,
Mhm.
right? You might have had kind people that might have been like, no, I really want to help them and I want to help them learn.
Yeah.
But not a lot of people knew even what to do or how to do it. So there
Right.
was a huge learning curve until the late 80s, into the 90s, when all of these laws started changing. And I realized when I was doing an interview with somebody once that I lived through all these decades of these laws being changed and these laws started. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, that's really fascinating. That with the way I grew up, I really grew up in a disability era where things were changing and and we were asking about acceptance. But in that 70s through 90s, part of the time, acceptance was odd and acceptance wasn't even available. We're only in 35 to 38 years of maybe even having an iota and an understanding of disability. It's
Yeah.
only 30 years old.
Yeah. And so, like, for my uncle, I mean, because I'm sure there was this huge element of frustration for him because he was highly intelligent. He could understand everything going on.
Mhm.
You know, he would read energy. So people that were afraid of him, he knew that. And, he would often become violent. So living in our home, all we could do was put him on Thorazine, which is an
Mm,
incredibly strong drug, just so that he could be calm enough to live in the house. When
mm,
we moved him to a home, I mean, we didn't know that we could have done something differently. So when we moved him to a home, it was interesting that I think it was right in the beginning of that time that you're talking about where
mhm,
they were trying to rehabilitate him. And they would, I mean, obviously he couldn't live on his own, but he had a job he could go to.
mhm.
And one of the jobs that he really loved doing was ripping fabric to make rags.
Oh, wow.
So
Think
it was
about the
like,
sensory of that, right? Think
yeah.
about the sensory. You can take fabric, pull it apart, and he knew one, he accomplished something,
Hmm.
and two, that he had the strength and the dexterity to do it, right? So think
Yeah.
about that for like those achievements. And then technology didn't catch up yet because
Right.
because he was probably in a home, probably school was not an easy situation. They didn't have tech and sometimes they had the boards where you could point to things and maybe when he was in the home they were teaching him how to use those boards. But now with iPads, we have ones that talk for us.
Oh,
And they're called
wow.
AAC devices. Those have
Yeah.
only been around for like 25 years.
Yeah.
And so back then it was picture boards. You could take a
Mhm.
picture and put it on there,
Yeah.
and go, oh, I want food. Oh, or they'll teach you sign language, more food, right? I don't know a lot of
Yeah.
sign, but I know more and I know food. That was about,
Yeah.
and I know I love you. That's it. But like they would teach you those, they might have taught people those things.
Hmm.
And, but, nowadays there's assistive technology. And he would have
Right.
been like, I like to go to my job,
Yeah.
and, the fact that he was able to go to work and enjoyed something very satisfying,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And, and, uncle probably was excited. Hey, they gave me something to do. At least I'm
Yeah.
not going to be bored just sitting there making a noise all day long. He probably didn't want to do that.
No, no, he would,
Mhm.
he enjoyed things that were physical. So, fortunately we had a pool at the house and so he could swim.
Oh,
He had a lot of energy, even on Thorazine. So we had to take him on walks a lot, do all sorts of things to get that energy out so that he could stay calm. And even like that,
smart.
he would get frustrated and he would do things like block up the toilets and
Mhm.
one day there was one time he threw his mattress out the window.
And think about it. My your brain doesn't work all the way, right?
Yeah,
Like, but you do have things that click. You can't verbalize it. There's no way to get it out.
right.
And so behaviors are about attention. Well, if I
Yeah,
clog the toilet or oops, I threw something down there, I can't really tell them. Who
yeah,
knows why the mattress went out the window?
yeah,
But let them see how strong I am. I don't know.
yeah,
Right? Like, I need a better place to sleep. That mattress is hurting my back. That mattress
yeah,
is hurting my neck. I want a better place to sleep. I'm going to get rid of the thing that hurts me every day. I don't
right.
know. But think
Yeah,
about it. If there is no way to tell you what I need, I'm just going to get rid of what I need
right.
because you don't know what my needs are.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
don't ask me what my needs are, and there's no way to tell you what they are because the societal norms weren't even caught up to that yet.
yeah. So you are a bright shining light in the world of disability. You are so sparkly and
Mhm,
spunky and
mhm,
you do so much
mhm.
and you don't let anything get you down.
Whew,
And
it's hard
well,
sometimes, girl.
well,
It's really
not
hard.
not publicly anyway.
Mhm, mhm.
You do really well. And
Thank you.
I want you to share some of your light and
Mhm.
just speak to some of the positive things you've been doing in the disability space to make a
So
difference.
this has been happening for a long, long time. Um, when I was a teenager and I kind of wanted to give back, I was involved in a lot of service programs because I was in Interact Club, and which is a club for it it was Rotary for the youth. And I got involved with Special Olympics. I brought Special Olympics. I mean, I was probably teaching people inclusion without even knowing I was teaching them about inclusion, right? And so I wanted to bring the youth to Special Olympics because they needed to see it. Now, did I know that I was doing that when I'm like 15 and a half years old, 14 years old? Probably not. But I liked, being a part of the buddies club, and I went and I did all these things, with the self-contained, because I'm like, well, I'm disabled. At least I can hang out with them and try to kind of figure out, what they all need and support them too, and maybe encourage some other people to do that as well. And as time grew on, I really wanted to be a special ed teacher and I couldn't because I wasn't able to do the education requirements, and math would have been one of them. And I have dyscalculia, which is a learning disability or all around math. And as tried as I wanted to, I couldn't understand algebra. Math and I hated one another. I could write and I could admit words, but at least you had like word processors that helped with spelling and different things. So I didn't always get dinged on grammar. Maybe if I probably had the excellent grammar, my grades would have been probably more like A's and B's when I got more like B's and C's. Um, and I think that, you know, when I started the career in my late 20s, learning how to become a job developer, career counselor was when I really understood the importance of capability, the importance of capability of myself, and the importance of capabilities of others. So this was like built-in advocacy work because I'm in a phone book calling places, and then a few years later, I'm at a career center educating employers, hey, if I'm walking around with the blind person and I'm their sighted guide only for that day, why are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Hey, if I'm bringing you to the job fair, you need to be talking to my clientele and not me because I'm not applying for the job. I have a job.
Right.
They're looking for work. And then we would go to these big job fairs at the football stadiums, and we had big banners back then called Think Accessibility, and we were bringing assistive technology tools and teaching all of the employers and the employment representatives at the fairs about accommodations and what they could learn and what they could ask. So this was in the early 2000s. We were doing advocacy work. And and then as time went on, I moved out here and I got jobs at a few disability organizations. And in Massachusetts, they're mean and like bossy, but like bossy in an inappropriate way where like I got in trouble at work, but this place was like brutal. Like they were bullies. And I worked for disability organizations and I can't believe how brutal they were. Bullies. And I was disciplined in ways that I can't even imagine. I mean, I would go home and bring it all home and cry because I didn't want to go to work tomorrow. And so when I finally kind of figured out what I should do, I got my massage license. And when I got so fed up with these jobs being bullies, I wanted to give up and I just left and I didn't do that job anymore in 2017. In 2017, I decided to go become a full-time massage therapist. And I hid for a couple of years and I didn't do any advocacy work. That was weird for me.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to go back out and network. And as I did that, I reacquainted myself with a program called vocational rehabilitation, which helped me get my massage license. But back in the day, they helped me go to school. They helped me get my driver's license. They helped me with tons of stuff. And so then I started doing advocacy work again. And I worked with the mass rehabilitation systems. And I got to do public speaking again and I got to do programming. Way before that, in the early 2000s, I was out in the scene in the volunteer world, civic engagement world, telling people about how AmeriCorps was a pathway for employment for people with disabilities and advocating. It was phenomenal work.
Yeah.
And as the years have gone on, I got sick after COVID. COVID made me very depressed. And then I got sick after COVID. And I believe I had long COVID, which I think gave me a stomach infection. And I had to have part of my colon taken out. So I was in and out of the hospital about 4 times. And then the worst of the worst happened. I cannot even believe that I slid on ice and I hit my face and I hit my head. And now I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor. And within that traumatic brain injury surviving mode, wherever the hematomas hit and they started waking up, there's this motivation center went, no, yes, you can, and you're gonna do it. Yes, you can, and you're gonna do it. And so I just started doing things that I would have fought with myself before. And I would have cried and I would have been like, this is too hard. I can't. It's too hard. And now I'm kind of like, oh, bring it on. Even if it's going to be hard, even if it's going to be confusing. People misunderstand me all the time. I'm misunderstood. You know, I can say all day long I have a disability, but I'm still misunderstood, and nobody wants to take their time and go, "Oh, well, maybe I should just talk to her. I hope she's all right." You
Yeah.
you don't because there's this understanding of, well, she looks kind of normal, she seems kind of normal, but that behavior didn't seem right. And
Right.
then like all of a sudden you're wrong. All of a sudden you're oh well, I'm not sure if I trust her anymore, or I'm not sure if I like her anymore. I don't really want to go there. And it's like, but wait, I already told you that I'm disabled, and I already told you that I've been advocating. We should probably have a conversation to fix this, but it's too much, you know?
Yeah.
And what are they going to ask for? Nobody knows what to do, right? So
Right.
so the light in the world has been, no matter what happens, you're right. Now I have this weird motivational thing that I'm like, okay, no matter what happens, let's go for it.
Yeah.
Even if it gets screwed up, I can try to fix it or make it better somewhere else. So now I have a magazine. I have a magazine that I always want people to write for, and I want people to contribute because I think it's important, and I want people to feel empowered after they wrote a story. I decided that the magazine wasn't enough.
Mhm.
So I wanted something tangible for people, and I made some clothes, and I have bags, and I have adaptability, and I want to be able to give people these opportunities to understand and have I want people to have opportunities to understand that just when we say the word disability, we're also talking about inclusive practices. We're also talking about inclusion, we're talking about accessibility, we're talking about access. So, even within the disability world, yes, you're bringing in people who might not have disabilities into Special Olympics, but you've made that silo. So, what if we had a sports team that you had people with disabilities and you had people with non disabilities, and it wasn't about the win, but it was about the playing? It was
Mhm.
about actually playing the sport and enjoying playing the sport. So what if there was an actual team that did that? That would be inclusion. Now, does that exist? Probably not. But that would be general inclusion. What if there was a networking party and everyone got to come? And you took people out of the group home or out of the day program, and we got rid of the pizza and the Coca-Cola, and we actually had a nice iced tea, some chicken wings, and we hung out at bars, or we hung out in places where everyone hangs out. Is this happening? Not all the time.
Right.
I finally went to a networking event where there was more than two of us. People with disabilities. There was more than two of us in the room, and we were accepted, and we were engaged, and we're businesswomen, and we were women. And so I, I want to live in a world that I want more of that. And I want to create a world. I'm only one person, and I'm trying to grow. And then I have a TV show, and I've had it now for almost 8 months, and I can't believe the empowerment and the confidence change in having the TV show. Like, I almost do a podcast a week, and so being able to do these podcasts and being able to speak with others, whether I'm being interviewed or they're being interviewed, is the most coolest thing I think I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I really love it. And I'm hoping in the very near future, because I'm going to shift into a nonprofit in 27. I got a fiscal agent, is that I'm going to be able to create some programming for people to be interviewed, for people to learn how to interview, for
Mhm.
people with disabilities to either share their own stories or report news. And that's one of my long-term goals in the next, because I have some plans for some events, and I won't be able to be at every single event, and I can't be
Right.
everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So it would be great to train some people so they might be able to do it. They can get some sponsors, and they can grow their own programs, or they can have a platform. um, but I think that if they would learn how to use their AAC device, to speak and interview someone, and somebody could find that patience to listen to what the AAC was asking,
Yeah.
or we wrote something in and the teleprompter spoke it, and then people can answer the questions. No, that person didn't speak it, but they typed it. Maybe it's going to take a little bit longer, but I still think it would be a huge achievement.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there where I'm part of a leadership group with the Chamber of Commerce where I live, and we went to hear a speaker from Pride Industries. And
Mm.
um, out here in California, they are a company that's done very well employing people with disabilities and being able to match their skills and abilities with a certain job and send them out to the workforce. And they say that it's been a tremendous success because these people are so grateful to have a
Hmm.
job where they're productive.
Yeah.
They don't call in work, they don't call in sick very
Oh,
much because they want to come to work
yep.
because it's such a nice thing for them to be
It's
valued.
it's meaningful.
Yeah,
And giving people something meaning to do instead of demeaning them. Back in the day, Yasmin, there was sheltered workshops where they were putting postcards into envelopes or doing hole punches if they had the dexterity. But they were doing simple jobs and they got like, I think, 3 to 5 cents.
yeah,
I worked for a place once and I couldn't believe it. And they still were under sheltered workshop laws. And it was like 2020, 2019 and 2017. And I was like, we're still doing sheltered workshop and paying somebody $6 an hour? How is this even okay? They
right.
were paying them 5 cents, a nickel.
Wow.
And it's like, how is this okay? People should be treated with dignity and respect. And of course, they want to go to work. It's meaningful.
Yeah,
I have reasons to get up every single day now.
yeah,
I have reasons to go and have productivity every day now. And, there were times that I had nothing. And I would sit in my bed and felt worthless because I had nothing. And I had
yeah.
nothing meaningful to do. And now every day is a creative moment, and I have to think about all the creativity I get to create. Oh my gosh. Right? And
Yep.
all of the things that I want to do, and I want to do too many things, and I have to pull it back.
Hmm.
But now I have so much purpose and so much meaning. Does the paycheck follow? Because you know what? Here's the other problem. Because I use that ugly word, I'm not paid. Because I use that ugly word, I'm paid at my massage studio. But because I use that ugly word, I don't get paid very often. I don't get hired very often. A lot of people will take advantage of me and call me on the phone and be like, "Oh, Roxy, I need some resources. Will you tell me all that you know about Social Security? Will you tell me all you know about this, that, and the other?"
Yeah.
And wait, I'm talented enough to give you all that guidance, but I'm not talented enough for you to respect my time and value me? And that's the disability story a lot too.
Yeah.
Why are they going to get paid minimum wage? What if they worked in that field at whatever industry it was and they worked there for 5 to 7 years and you still only paid them minimum wage? Where's the fair pay? Where's the equality?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Important things to consider. So,
I want inclusive worlds. That's what I want. And how do I get there? I don't know yet, but
yeah.
I want to fight for it every day. I'm out there advocating and now spreading the news on the advocacy. I'm hoping in the next 2 to 4 years that I'm going to go back into some level of direct service or some level of group family coaching programming because I really want people to have this empowerment that I've been really wanting. But that company is it's only 2 years old. So the accomplishments of that company at two and where we're heading is pretty remarkable. I mean, how many companies do you know have a fashion line, magazine, and TV show and working on new programming in a 2 year period?
Not many.
Right, exactly. I mean, the accomplishments of that company is beyond, it's even beyond my wildest dreams.
Yeah. You're doing good, lady.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And it's really enjoyable. And the creativity part is even more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your practice and
Mm.
what you do for everyone, not
Yeah.
necessarily just people with disabilities, and how they
Hmm.
can get a hold of you.
So I have a practice in Massachusetts.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of my work is hands-on body work in person. Um, but hold on, there's more. So quietly for about a year and a half, I've been studying under two psychosomatic therapists. And they're really brilliant, intelligent men who really love the how somatic work can really affect the brain, the heart, the physical, and they've been teaching us about symptoms. They've been teaching us about pain. They've been teaching us about light movement, light, small movement, or even putting your hand there. And they've been teaching us about listening to people, having dialogue. So I've been learning this treasure of a tool that is kind of like somatic processing, but it has a whole different feel. The other things that I've been learning about is that I've been doing body work and helping people try to take care of their pain and maybe getting some people's pain kind of removed or less discomfort, which has been absolutely wonderful. But now I'm praying with a brain that's dysregulated, and I'm playing with a brain to calm it down and allowing that brain to be more regulated and calm. And then they leave my treatment room and they go home to their lives. And all of a sudden, that becomes dysregulated again. And guess what comes up in their body? Pain,
Oh,
which is really fascinating, right?
yeah.
Because prior to this, I was helping support that pain. And either that pain would be less or it would be removed. I'm not trying to give people more pain, but we're so anxious, we're so stressed, and we're so much in a world that everything is anxiety. And a
Yeah.
lot of factors really affect our lives: emotional, chemical, environmental, everything affects our lives, right?
Yeah.
You know, and we're in even a scarier time than we've ever been. So I'm, understanding that there's a lot of balance that you have to do when you're working with the human. And
Yeah.
I was never a therapist. I've been a social service person and I've been a massage therapist where I've been helping people with the body and telling them about body skills and telling them different things. But now I'm realizing that the holding of the space of someone for all of them is really significant. I'm also learning that I have to do everything in my power to take care of me.
Mhm.
So I can be that resource and that source to take care of them. And I can do this work not just on the table, we can have dialogue anywhere around the world, anywhere.
Yeah.
My prayer is that someday it's going to be in a room with a crowd of 50 to 500 people,
Mhm.
and I'm going to be doing demos on the stage, helping people through their process. And there'll be a lovely treatment room when somebody else can be hosting and facilitating because I'm training a person with a disability to be able to facilitate dialogue. And I can walk out and I can have a treatment area where there might be other practitioners and I'm still able to treat. And I don't have to do it in my massage room in one state. I can do it anywhere around the world. So I can handle this virtually, but it's really about talking,
Mhm.
supporting people in self-care, holding space for people, and really allowing people to go through their process. and listening to what that process might be. And it's called dynamic somatic touch. And I'm a somatic um, holistic practitioner who's really trying to, just got a tickle. Excuse me.
That
Who's really trying to, excuse me. Who's
that
really
happens to
just,
me all the time.
right? And I normally have water right by me, but of course I
Yeah.
didn't. And if I wasn't live, I'd be like, honey, get me water. But but it's really about, you know what it is, Yasmin? It's the human connection.
Yeah.
Remember when I went back and said, I tell people I'm disabled all the time?
Hmm.
And then they forget if something gets misunderstood or there's angst.
Hmm.
We're human beings.
Yeah.
We're going to have a good day. We're going to have a bad day.
Yeah.
I've been overwhelmed. I haven't been this busy. For 2 weeks straight, I've been nonstop. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not used to having a podcast every day. Not used
Right.
to that. I have to interview people now. My life is changing. My life is evolving.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not used to all these meetings to make all the things that I'm going to make happen
Right.
because, a year and a half of 3 years ago, I didn't have my magazine, and my fashion line, and I definitely wasn't a somatic practitioner. And when I get anxiety, I also have practices now that I can work on myself,
Yeah.
which is very exciting. So I think that a lot of people will hear about somatic work, Yasmin, and they'll think, oh, it's just breathing. Oh, it's movement. Oh, I can kind of do, a happy movement of whatever I want. But the somatic work that I'm actually doing, we're just regulating that nervous system. And when I did massage, I really learned how they took deep breaths of release. I could feel them releasing. I'm watching patterns of their breathing, but this is a deep sense of relief.
Yeah.
Release, they might be like, oh, and like you might see them roll their shoulder back, or you might see them, do something. Relief, their eyes are blinking. They're not sure what's going on. They don't understand how they feel. Because my colleague and I, who have been studying this for a while and have done a lot of body work, we said we're going into neutral and we don't understand what that feels like.
Mm.
Because if things start relaxing and all of a sudden you don't have anxiety anymore, and all of a sudden you're not as anxious anymore, and all of a sudden you can process things better because you're not in that same fight, flight, freeze, what do? You just reduced all the disabling conditions
Right.
and made it into some kind of ability that you're not familiar with. I don't know how to unregulate my disability, but I might be learning how. And that might scare me and excite me all at the same time because I've never been there before.
Right.
And I'm learning something that is a little bit real and unknown.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, and I do a lot of energy healing myself,
Right?
and I honestly believe nothing is out of the realm of possibility when it comes to
Mhm.
healing.
Right?
And so I'm excited for you
No.
and where this leads you. So that's awesome.
Um,
So
I'm
just
excited that you get to meet so many different people in the human condition and get to communicate with them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's really, I mean, we're Bob and I were about gathering tools, hearing people's stories, providing hope, inspiration, but also tools that people like you are learning and sharing
Yeah.
with others. So we really want this world to be better.
We need to make it better. It's really hard right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
And and sometimes I'm like, okay, you see somebody, they're really struggling, and you're like, okay, well, I know they can do this and they can do that and then blah blah blah,
Hmm.
but sometimes if their mindset isn't there, you can't even reach them. So you plant a seed of hope, a seed of inspiration, and
Yes.
you just hope that they'll take it to the next level. So,
I have a very small story, and then I want to also give where people can find me.
yeah. Mhm.
This week, I did a show on my main show where we were giving hope to people. And there was a gentleman that came out of nowhere and said, "Oh, I saw you and I was really excited." And he wanted some hope. And, and the challenges, we're doing TV shows and broadcasting, we're media people.
Mhm.
We're not the social service people, right?
Right,
Which I used to be. And so and even when you're doing social services, you can't get anything done in an 8 to 10 hour period. And
right.
when people are so emotional and their nervous system is so deregulated, or they have severe disabilities that they really don't even know how to calm it down. So this person has some legal needs and actually might have been on the spectrum and it could actually recite legal jargon. And because I couldn't get to him the information that he wanted, he started being disoriented, angry, and disrespectful. And so, what do? You have to kind of let it go because you can't help everyone.
Right,
And I also need to also remember that I'm staying in my lane. Whether I used to do my I can still do my advocacy work, but if I used to be able to give services, I'm a media company and I do reporting or I do celebrating and I give hope with other people's stories.
right,
So it's a totally different process than me saying, "Oh, I'm going to do this and this and this."
right.
And, that's exciting.
Hmm.
But you also have to know when you need to take a step back. And it's okay because we want to give hope, but we can't solve it for everyone.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Um, would
So
you like
yeah,
me to go ahead?
yes, yes. Let people know how they can reach out to you.
Sure. So I have two websites, embracing wellness by Roxy.com. That's where the somatic work is. I'm hoping in the next 3 to 6 months, I'll have a separated area for the somatic work only. I can do some energy work and I can do some other things virtually. Um, and you can always reach out to roxylmt311 at gmail.com. And then if you want to write an article, you possibly want to be on one of my platforms, or we need to have a disability conversation. You can reach me at www.embracing-disability.com. And it's Roxy at the same embracing-disability.com. Um, I want to truly let people know that whether you're going through something that you need wellness work or you're going through something else in your life, please reach out to your neighborhood. Please reach out to community and please find people so you're not alone. And also, yes, this takes work and it takes time, but we all can get there because every single one of us have capability and we can do it one digestible step at a time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. You're so welcome.
And I'm sure we'll have another conversation at another point.
Oh,
So,
that would be so fabulous.
yeah.
Would love to give people an update on what's happening.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you again.